Hey everyone, it's Megan here from Megan Makes Do, and today I'm going to show you how to make the front panel of the Ranie sweater. So for the front panel, you're going to be following the same instructions that we did for the back panel, rows 1 through 8, and then we're going to repeat rows 3 through 8 for the indicated number of times according to the size that you're making. So this is my basic front panel for my small mini version that I'll be showing you. I've already done my row 3 through 8 repeats, and now I'm going to repeat rows 3 through 6. So go ahead and follow along and repeat rows 3 through 6 after you've done the initial front panel rows, just as you would the back panel. Okay, so I've just finished rows 3 through 6, and now we're going to be splitting off and working on the front left side, which will look like we're working on the right side of the panel, but it'll be the left side of the sweater once you have it on. So we're going to be working just to the center of our panel. And so there will be an indicated number of stitches on the pattern. Just follow the one for your size. And please note that the first row of the left side is worked differently depending on the size you have. So we're going to the center, either all in single crochet or doing a single crochet two together at the end once we get to the center. Just kind of depends on what size you are doing. And then we're going to be decreasing on that center side as we go. So I'm going to chain one and then work single crochet, and again you'll just be following along with whatever size you are making. And again, I'm making a miniature size just to show you all the stitch details, and I'm going to be working single crochet across all the way to the center. And what will end up happening is we'll have one stitch left in between our right side and left side panels. So just follow along with the written pattern, which you can find on the meganmakesdo.com blog, and I'll put a link in the description for you as well. Okay, so I've gotten to the center, and for some sizes you'll stop here. And for other sizes, you're going to then work single crochet two together. So you'll be decreasing by one. And so here is the end of our first row of that left side. And we're going to stop there. And then what we're going to be doing is decreasing along this center part right here for the remaining rows for that side. And then we'll pick up and we'll do the right side when we're done. Okay, so for row 2, we're going to start by working a chain 2 and turning our work. And this chain 2 does count as our first stitch. So we're going to be decreasing by 1. So we're going to go ahead and work a half double crochet 2 together over the first 2 stitches. So that's our decrease. That's going to keep our edge decreasing and making that V-neck. And then we're just going to half double crochet into each stitch across. And these instructions will be for every size. After row 1, they all get worked the same. Okay, so that's the end of row 2, and you'll start to see here in the center, we are decreasing, and you'll start to see that V, and then along this edge, we're just keeping it nice and straight. So for row 3, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and then we are going to single crochet into the first stitch, chain 2, skip 1, single crochet, chain 2, skip 1, single crochet, and we're going to repeat that going all the way across until 2 stitches remain. Okay, so we're getting towards the end of our row here. There's a single crochet. I have 2 stitches left. So I'm going to only chain 1 this time. This is where our decrease is. We're just chaining 1 instead of 2. We're skipping that last stitch, and then we're working a single crochet into the top of the chain 2 from the previous row. So that's the end of row 3. And now we're going to move on to row 4. Okay, we're going to chain 2 and turn. And then our decrease here is a little bit different. So we've got this chain 1 space. We're just going to skip that space. And then we're going to work a half double crochet 2 together using the single crochet stitch and then into the chain 2 space. Okay, so that's our decrease, and we have a chain 2 as the first stitch. Now we're going to chain 1, skip the next single crochet, and work a half double crochet into the chain 2 space, just as we would normally when we were doing our back and our lower front panels. So again, chain 1, skip the single crochet, and work a half double crochet into the chain 2 space, and repeat that all the way across. Okay, so here's what we have at the end of row 4. You're starting to see that V-neck shape even more clearly. And then moving into row 5, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to single crochet into each stitch across until we only have 2 stitches remaining. And remember, the last stitch that remains will be that chain 2 from the row below, since it does count as a stitch. Okay, so we're getting towards the end here, and now we have 2 stitches remaining. So I'm going to work a single crochet 2 together over those last 2 stitches, and remember that one of those stitches is the top of the chain 2 from the row below. Okay, and that completes row 5. So for row 6, this one's going to be a little bit different, and everyone's going to end a little bit different depending on how many stitches you have. So at the beginning, we're going to decrease by only working 2 chains. Normally for this row, we'd work 3 chains, since the first 2 count as a stitch and the third one would count as this skip stitch here. But we're just eliminating it all together, so only chain 2 and then skip a stitch and work 2 half double crochet. So you can see here, our chain 2 counts as the first stitch, and then we're eliminating that third chain to take a stitch out. Then we're going to chain 1, skip 1, half double crochet 2. And we're going to do that all the way across until we have 1 or 2 stitches remaining. Okay, so when we get to the end of our row, you'll either have 1 or 2 stitches left over once you finish your repeats. I have 1, so I'm going to go ahead and work 1 last half double crochet into that stitch. If you have 2, you'll chain 1, skip 1, and then work a half double crochet into the last stitch. So just make sure that you're keeping track of how many stitches you have left at the end of your row 6. So for row 7, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to single crochet into each stitch across, ending with 2 stitches remaining, and then working a single crochet 2 together over those last 2 stitches. Okay, so we've reached the end. We have 2 stitches. Again, one of those is the chain 2 from the row below. So we're going to work a single crochet 2 together over those last 2 stitches. Okay, so now for row 8, we're going to chain 2. This counts as our first stitch. Make sure you turn your work, and then we're going to start by working a half double crochet 2 together. So this is where our decrease is in this row. And then we're just going to work a half double crochet in each stitch across. Okay, so here we are. We've reached the end of row 8. So just follow along with the pattern. You're going to repeat rows 3 through 8 for however many times your size indicates. And again, we're always just going to be decreasing on this edge and keeping the other edge straight. So go ahead and follow the pattern for your size and keep decreasing for your left side. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fasten off and pull mine through. This is where I'm going to stop for my mini sample. So now I'm going to turn my panel over and get myself situated to start the right side. Okay, so here's our first row that we worked, the single crochet. So here, this is where my single crochet together was. Here's one stitch. I'm going to skip that stitch in between. And then in the very next stitch, so 2 stitches over from where you ended, we're going to draw up a loop, chain 1, and then I'm going to work single crochet 2 together across those first 2 stitches. Now some of you will single crochet 2 together, some of you will only be single crocheting. It just depends on what size you're making. And then we're just going to single crochet into each stitch all the way to the edge. Okay, so for row 2, we're going to chain 2 and turn. And then we're going to, remember the chain 2 counts as a stitch. So then we're going to half double crochet all the way across back into that center until we have 2 stitches remaining. Okay, so we're getting close to the end here. I have my last 2 stitches. I'm going to work a half double crochet 2 together across those 2 stitches to work a decrease. So here you'll see our little V is forming. Now we're decreasing again in that center area and keeping the other edge straight. So for row 3, we're going to chain 1 and turn, and then we're going to single crochet. This time again, only chaining 1 instead of 2. That's our decrease. Skip a stitch, single crochet, chain 2, skip 1, single crochet, chain 2, skip 1, single crochet, and we're going to do that all the way across to the end of our row. Okay, so our last single crochet is going to get worked into the top of the chain 2 from the row below. And that will be the end of row 3. So for row 4 on the right side, we're going to chain 2 and turn. And then we're going to work a half double crochet into that first chain 2 space. chain 1, skip the single crochet, and work a half double crochet into the chain 2 space. And again, repeat that. Chain 1, skip the single crochet, half double crochet into the chain 2. And we're going to do that all the way across until we have just one of those chain 2 spaces remaining. Okay, so I reached my last chain 2 space, and I'm going to be working a half double crochet 2 together across the chain 2 space and the single crochet stitch. Then I'm just going to skip the chain 1 space and work a half double crochet into that last stitch. Okay, so that's how we work a decrease at the end of that row. So for row 5, I'm going to chain 1, turn, work a single crochet 2 together over the first 2 stitches, and then a single crochet in each of the next stitches all the way across. Okay, so that's the end of row 5. Now we're going to move on to row 6, and I'm going to be chain 3, which counts as the first stitch, and the third chain counts as a skip stitch. So the chain 2 counts as our first stitch, and then the third chain counts as the stitch that we're about to skip. So skip a stitch and then work 2 half double crochet. And then you're going to chain 1, skip 1, and again work 2 half double crochet. And then we're going to do that all the way across until we either end with 2 stitches or 4 stitches. So on mine, I ended with 4 stitches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 1, skip 1, and work a half double crochet 2 together. That's my decrease, and then work 1 half double crochet. Now if your row ends with 2 stitches remaining, all you're going to do is skip a stitch and then work 1 half double crochet into the last stitch. So that skip stitch will be your decrease at the end of the row. So make sure you're paying attention to how many stitches you have at the end of row 6. For row 7, we're going to chain 1 and turn and work a single crochet 2 together, and then we're just going to work single crochet all the way across. Okay, so now for row 8, we're going to chain 2 and turn. Again, the chain 2 counts as our first stitch, and then we're just going to half double crochet in each stitch across until we have 2 stitches remaining. And then we're going to work a half double crochet 2 together over those last 2 stitches. And then according to whatever size you are doing, you're going to repeat rows 3 through 8 for a number of times, and then you may also have to repeat a few more rows after that, depending on your size. So as you can see here, I finished my little mini front panel. I'm going to go ahead and fasten off. So you'll see here, your panel will be leaning a little bit. That's totally normal. Again, you can just ignore that. That's fine. If you want to go ahead and weave in your ends, just make sure that you leave some long tails at the top for seaming. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my back panel and I'm going to show you how to seam your two pieces together. Okay, so now I have my back panel and my front panel, and what I want to show you is how to determine where your right side is. So this is the right side of my piece, and how you can tell is you'll see that little back third loop of your half double crochet rows. That will be facing you when you have the right side up. So if you're working one of like the single crochet rows, that side that's facing you, that's the right side. So I'm going to lay my back panel down with the right side facing up. And then I'm going to take my front panel and I'm going to lay that on top of my back panel with the right side facing down. So the wrong side will be facing me. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to seam these top shoulder panel pieces together. So the top seams will become the shoulders. So what I like to do is I like to start on the outside edge and work my way into the center. So I'm going to take that outer piece of yarn and thread it through my tapestry needle. And then I like to use the mattress stitch for this. So I'm going to go ahead and go from the inside going out through that first stitch of the back panel, which will actually be a chain 2. So I pull my yarn through both parts of that stitch, and then I like to go back through the first stitch on the front panel, again from the inside out, and pull it through. And we're just going to continue doing that all the way across. So we're going in through each stitch, we're like weaving back and forth, always going from the center out. Hope that makes sense. And we're just going to use our mattress stitch going all the way across until we've covered all the stitches for the front panel and they've easily attached to the back. So take your time with this, go slow. And if you prefer a different type of seaming method, go ahead and use whatever you feel comfortable using. And then we're just going to go ahead and repeat the process on the other shoulder seam. So I'm going to use the long tail from my back panel, thread it onto my needle, and again, working through opposite sides. So going through the first stitch on the front panel, again, that's through a chain 2. And then from the inside out, going through the first stitch on the back panel. So make sure that you're going through the same numbered stitch on either side. And again, take your time, go slow. And again, you can use a different seaming method. Just do whatever you think looks best and whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, so now we have our shoulder seams all complete, and you'll see that we have our nice V-neck shape here along the front. So we have our neckline going. We want to line up our panels the best we can, and then we're going to be working the side seams. So as you'll see in the pattern, you're going to be working the side seams from the bottom up until you've reached a certain number of rows or amount of space, because we're going to leave a space from the shoulder seam down to the side for your armhole. So make sure that you're stopping your seam at the indicated amount so that you have room for your arm to fit through and room for us to make the sleeves. So go ahead and seam your side panels, making sure to leave your armhole openings open, and then you can go ahead and weave in any remaining ends that you have. As always, you can find the free written version of the Ranie Sweater pattern over on the Megan Makes Do blog, as well as a PDF version in my shop. Links to both are in the description below.